Hi everyone, this is part one of the Kettlebell Snatch series, and essentially I'm going to take you through some of my my most successful teaching points in this. Like over the years, it's been, first of all, it was my nemesis exercise, and I learned both from the RKC and the Strong First, but most of my training actually came from the IKFF and Steve Cotter. So that's why you see me sometimes doing hard style versus a sports style, and I can go into those styles in a different video, but essentially for the purposes of this series I'm going to be doing hard style. This tends to be the most commonly seen version. And another thing just to add at the start here is that we are not aiming for perfection all in one go. And I think that when you get that out of your mind, then you can kind of enjoy the process of learning much more, rather than trying to progress too quickly or kind of getting sloppy and giving up and not being consistent with practice. And I'm only saying that because that's exactly what I did, and then I managed to change my mindset a little bit. So today I want to cover three things, and one is basically what I call a ground up approach. The next is a head down, and then the final thing will be consistent practice. So point number one, ground up. And what does that mean? We're looking to the feet to start with. This is your point of contact with the ground, and that's where you're going to get most of your force from. If your feet don't have good contact, as in, you're coming up off your toes, or you're kind of going into the sides of the feet, or you're not able to essentially, as you're hinging back, you're going back too far, and this is causing balance issues. But once you're grounded through the feet, so when you're hinging back, you're also allowing the weight to shift into the whole foot, getting that good grounding there, then you have amazing balance. And that means that should something, when you're throwing something up overhead, you need to have a good base. Okay, it's as simple as that. So really focus in on what your feet are doing. And if you're wearing big padded shoes, take them off. Get some contact with the floor, feel it, and that's how you essentially want to do all exercises, that you have that contact with the floor. You can use like very thin shoes, or if you're good at it, if they're not very wobbly shoes, then that's fine if you're very proficient at that. But to start with, gaining that awareness is hugely beneficial to any exercise. So the next thing is the single arm swing, which is the foundation for the kettlebell snatch, the clean, and many other, obviously it's the lead in to a lot of other exercises. So the number one problem I've seen is that there's a poor initial rep. The first rep, that you're basically hiking the kettlebell off the floor. So what I see often, so you want to get nicely grounded, nicely balanced, you're going to hinge back, and rather than bending forward, you want to set yourself back a little bit from the bell and bring your hips down. Okay? So it's not only a hinge, you're actually squatting a little bit as well. Like the deadlift, you go into a deadlift, you go into a hinge, and then you lower down and you keep your chest up, and then you drive up like this. That's what you're wanting to create for that first rep. Then you pull it back with intent, and you want to essentially be low enough in the hips so that you, especially when the weights start getting heavier, that you want to be able to reliably hike the kettlebell high up into the groin, and this loads the posterior chain, which means there's less work for you to try to get that energy into a hip snap, which then basically creates the foundation for the entire rest of the lift. Because if you miss that hip snap, if the timing's off or you haven't properly loaded, then you're playing catch up for the entire cycle that you're doing. So what that would look like is a single arm swing. I'm going to grab the kettlebell by the handle. I'm going to get my feet grounded, hips back, and then I'm going to lower myself, lats engaged, nice tension building up, and I'm going to, with intent, aim for my crotch, and I'm going to go into a hinge from there. So here, now, if the first rep is okay, as in you're getting your weight high up into the crotch, but the hips don't snap as powerfully as they could, then that's going to cause the next drain in the energy of the lift. Because if you go hike strong here and then don't powerfully snap the hips, then it just kind of looks a bit kind of withered, like it's not really got that energy there. So the second point of your kettlebell swing into the kettlebell snatch is to maximize the intent you have for your hip snap, and that's going from the hinge into snap. Okay, your butt needs to squeeze, and you're aiming for the kettlebell swing to propel the kettlebell out in front, and it's okay to build up that energy and that intent. Don't don't hold back. And some problems here are a lack of awareness of the glutes. You haven't really worked on really squeezing the glutes. It may just be that you haven't had any feedback, and so you don't know that that's the problem. So I would just say, in case that is your problem, just try to just maximize that hip snap, because it's going to be so much easier to control the kettlebell when the kettlebell goes from the hip snap into what I call a weightless zone, which means that the kettlebell essentially floats somewhere between when it is basically propelled off the hips and you lose this sort of contact between the arm and the body. This part is where you have the control, and if you don't have that weightless zone there, then you end up having to muscle the kettlebell up. Or if, for example, you have the direction wrong when you go from the swing to the snatch, which we'll cover in another video, is that then you get that sort of banging off the kettlebell. But there's a few other things that go into that part as well. But I really want to drill home how important it is to practice your single arm swing, so that you have the grounding, you have the good hinge in the good startup position, hips lower, and you're going to drive that back into the hike and then snap forward, okay, and you want to just do that, build that up in a few sets, or more sets of fewer reps, okay, not too heavy, but just build that strength and intent and consistency of the kettlebell snatch, or of the single arm swing. So the second thing was the head down, and I apologize for the background noise now, somebody's drilling or something. The head down is essentially going to be made up of, not from the top of the snatch, but I'm talking about inside, what's going on in here. Ego, expectations, and a lack of fun in the process, like really wanting to get to somewhere else other than now, which means you rush, which means you progress too quickly, and you get so frustrated that you give up. So ego at the door, meaning lighter weights to start with. Don't be afraid to do a lighter weight, and this is something I didn't do. I was determined I could use 16 or 20, and I muscled it. Like I was lucky, but I would just say start with the 8, progress to the 12, 14, 16, but you want to have a consistent and reliable swing, and not only that, but a consistent lockout, which I'll get to in another video, because this is very important Because there's no point in being able to swing a heavy bell and not be able to lock it out at the top in a good stable position. So expect it to take time. Like, expect it essentially to take a long time to really just be confident in your basically reliability. Don't worry about rushing it. And then try in the process to have fun with it, because if we make it the thing that we're supposed to do because we see other people doing it and theirs looks better and I want to be able to do that because it looks really cool, then you're going to go ahead of yourself, or you're going to basically stop trying. And both things are quite tragic, because it's actually a very nice exercise to basically be a part of and learn and see yourself improve. So the third thing I want to cover today is consistent practice. And I'm just reading off my notes to keep me on track. So basically when you're doing your kettlebell practice, you want to have, so for the next week, practice your swing. And then we're going to move into some more transitions into the upward phase. And what I want you to do is make sure that you have low to moderate intensity. That means that your intensity means effort that you need to put in to be able to achieve something. And if you're doing a lighter weight, a moderate weight, and you're able to do things efficiently without overly fatiguing yourself, then you're going to make more progress in a shorter amount of time. It's going to be much more enjoyable. You're going to run into less problems with calluses and grip issues and all of that. You want to build up slowly. You're going to do low reps, and you're going to do more sets. So 5 sets of 3 or 5 sets of 5 swings, and then eventually upward kettlebell snatches, and then eventually full snatches. So you want to break things down so that you're never getting fatigued to the point where you cannot train anymore. And then you do tend to want to do practice of skill, which this would count as, or technique, when you're fresh. That means you want to do that after your warm-up and before your main stuff. So you might do a general warm-up, a specific warm-up, say shoulders and maybe glute activation, all of that good stuff, and then practice your single arm swing for the next week anyway. And always include that in your practice, and then into either cleans or for this purpose, your upward phase of the kettlebell snatch. And if that's not possible, sometimes you might do a workout and then just take a notion you want to finish with some kettlebell snatches. So you've done some strength, you want to include this kettlebell workout at the end, separate the kettlebell snatch, do a few practices, and then do the rest, so that it's always separate so that you can really focus on it. And when you break down the sets into smaller segments like that, then you have much more focus, and you're not fatiguing your focus and not being able to tell whether or not it's been a good rep. So that would be like, say, I'm going into this, I'm going to start off, I'm going to go and rest. I'm going to rest for 20-30 seconds, whatever I need to recover. Then I'm going to go into another set, same side. And down. You're practicing the hike, and you're also practicing some swings in the middle, and then you're practicing how to basically reverse the movement as well. And then you'll go into kettlebell snatch practice, which is going to be the same essentially. So, oops. Rest, and then you do more sets like that. So I know this is not the typical here's what you should do and stuff like that, but I do want to cover some of the other elements that typically get in our way. And next week I'm going to, now you have a chance to practice the swing, I'm going to focus on some of the things that happen between the swing part and the lockout part, and hopefully these few tips or this perspective on it will help you be able to shift into at least the zone of mastery, that this is about practice and about consistent practice. And that's basically as a part of the point number 3, which is having it in frequently through your week, making it part of your skill work so that you get the opportunity to practice. So deliberately make it part of your week. Say 3 days a week you're going to put kettlebell snatch practice or kettlebell swing practice in at the start of your workout, and you will start to see amazing progress just by putting it in more frequently. Work on your hip snap, work on your foot position, and just get that hike back really reliable, so that when you first load the hips, that you can first snap the hips, and you are going to be able to achieve that weightless zone between where the arm comes off the body to around about shoulder height. You want to feel that as weightless. Okay, so hopefully this helps. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, anything you'd like me to explain more next week. And thanks for tuning in, and I will see you soon.